Part 4. Where we ended up. You are my sun, my moon, and all of my stars. E. Cummings. Chapter 31. Corey. January? No. I narrowed my eyes at her fist dangling off the side of the high chair. She mimicked the expression on my face and unclenched her fingers, dropping a heaping of baby cereal on the floor. As if the acrobat I was carrying felt mischievous behavior going on, they kicked. I grunted, caressing my belly. This kid loved to kick and sit on my bladder. They loved to do everything but turn around during an ultrasound to give us the answer we'd been waiting on. 7.5 months pregnant and nothing. Though, we had decided that whether a boy or girl, we were naming them October. Da-da, January blurted for the first time as she tossed more cereal. August, I screamed, fumbling with my phone to get the camera up. Say that one more time, Snowflake. I patted toward her as August came barreling down the stairs and flew into the kitchen, sans a shirt.
What's wrong?
He asked, slightly panicked. Since my scare a few months back, he's been on edge, especially if I say his name a little too loudly. I'd been good at not doing it, but January saying Dada for the first time got me excited. I'm okay, I promise. Snowflake said, Dad, 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 Dad. She performed, kicking her chubby legs at the sight of August.
Oh, shit.
He cursed, covering his mouth with a fist.
Did you get that?
I got it. He started to remove her from the chair, and she squealed in excitement. They were twins, those two. Her skin had darkened to match his hue. She had the cutest button nose that I realized resembled her Aunt June's more than anyone else's.
Say it one more time.
He sang, holding her Lion King style while spinning in circles.
Dada. Come on, you can do it. Dada.
She did everything but repeat his words. Laughing, I pressed record again and caught the moment in real time. He was such a good fucking dad. A good man. A great one. You probably want to stop spinning. January spit up right in his face, and I covered my mouth to stop from laughing.
Damn it.
I moved to help him, grabbing a few paper towels to clean his forehead. Dad, 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 January finally repeated, clapping her little hands. I think she likes catching you off guard, I surmised, tossing away the soiled towels as he sat her on the countertop.
She's a menace.
August griped with a smile.
Our menace, but one nonetheless.
She pushed herself up with the help of Daddy and bounced on her chubby feet.
She said no, to, and Dada. Remind me to write that in her little book.
I nodded and leaned against the counter. Do you think she'll... I shook my head, feeling stupid for wanting to ask. Never mind. Go finish getting ready. Your ride will be here soon. He ignored my command and tucked his fingers under my chin, slowly guiding my gaze to his.
Don't do that,
he said softly.
Talk to me. What's up?
It's stupid.
Nothing you've ever purposefully said or asked or blurted randomly has been stupid. Get out of your head and remember that this is me you're talking to.
Do you think she'll recognize me as Mom? Enough to randomly blurt Mama?
You worried about that?
I nodded. Babies could feel the truth no matter how hard you tried to hide it. It wasn't that I wanted to hide not being her biological mother. I just wanted her to know that I would try my best to be a good second-chance mom. I wanted her to feel that. It was such an insane thing to want from a 6-month-old.
I think she already recognizes you as her mom. Because you are, Corey.
He swiped the lone tear from my cheek and leaned over to kiss me. January protested, sticking her hand between us while shouting, No, no, no! For whatever hormonal reason, the tears began to fall in waves. This baby has turned me into a stupid, blubbering, emotional mess, I accused, wiping my face. August secured January under his arm in an airplane position and tugged me into his other side.
Our baby has only enhanced everything I love about you,
He squeezed my ass and nodded.
especially that.
You are such a pervert.
And you love that shit.
He led us into the living room, put January in her playpen, and then turned to face me.
You are her mother. She is your daughter. When she's old enough to know the truth and talk back, she'll still see you as her mother. Everybody in our household will share the last name Hansen. It's you and me and them.
It wasn't the first time he'd said this to me, and it probably wouldn't be the last. I still have a bare ring finger, and all my important documents have Mitchell etched next to Corey. He chuckled and backed me into a wall, boxing me in with his hands.
Patience, angel face. I have ideas and plans.
The brat in me wanted to pout. His elaborate proposal plans, whatever they might be, were taking forever. I wanted so badly to put Hansen next to my first name, and he knew it, which meant making it special for me took precedence for him. I love you, I whispered into his mouth, my fingers curling around the back of his neck.
Stop turning me on. We have company.
I grabbed his dick through his shorts and kissed just below his ear.
Fuck, I love you, woman.
He growled, nipping at my shoulder.
Don't wear anything to bed tonight.
I nodded and tried to release him, but August wouldn't allow it.
Stand your pretty ass right here until I can calm myself down.
Feeling proud of how easily I could affect him, I got comfortable against the wall. Didn't he know I lived for being all up in his personal space? The doorbell chimed before I could talk my shit, cutting our moment short. August dropped a kiss on my forehead and lips and excused himself, knowing it was Kingston, Journey, and Callie. The girls were hanging while the boys drove up north to a little town called Norbank Shores. August wanted to expand further outside the city, and after researching prime locations for Black businesses in Michigan, almost dead last on the list was Norbank, with a tiny inscription under the name, Rich in Black Culture. He'd been set on scoping out the area since. "Where's the baby?" Callie asked, bypassing me to find the one in question. "Wow," I said, feigning hurt. "I used to be the highlight of your life, and now I can't even get a hey." "Callie Rain," Journey called. "Don't be rude." Feet hitting the floor sounded, and then she appeared, a bright smile on her face. "Sorry, T. She's just so cute." Callie inched closer and kneeled down to kiss my belly. "Hello, young one. Is your host treating you well? I'm sure she is, so treat her just as good, okay?" She lifted that loving gaze to meet mine and smiled. "Hi." "Hey, baby," I greeted, fluffing her curls. "Look at that definition." "Finally perfected your wash and go routine." She took off before I could respond, and Journey chortled. She's been chomping at the bit to get over here. Kingston just wasn't moving fast enough for her. "So, basically," I chuckled and led us into the living room, "you birthed my built-in babysitter." "You know, eventually she'll be in high school and will want money for her services." I shrugged and lowered myself onto the sofa, gaze on Callie as she removed January from the playpen and lifted her little body in the air. "You are such a cute little thing. I'm your big cousin, but maybe we can pretend I'm your auntie instead. Anyway, I vow to never charge for my babysitting services." Journey snorted. "We'll see about that when you're 16.
I don't want to hear anything about my sweet baby girl becoming a mean teenager,"
Kingston said, ambling into the living room with the recyclable grocery bag in hand. "Dad, I could never be mean to you," Callie simpered. "Have some faith."
I know, Buttercup.
He lifted the bag and then turned toward the kitchen.
Saved some breakfast casserole for you, see.
Journey's breakfast casserole was my new obsession. "You are a godsend, and I'll love you even more if you heat it up as well. Spoon, no fork." August made an appearance, making a beeline for Callie and January, who were playing on the floor.
What's up, little mama?
He greeted Callie.
Feeling the curls.
She looked up and smiled. Thanks, but you can't take her yet. August chuckled and handed her the pacifier he'd been hiding behind his back. Da, January babbled, earning a gasp from Journey and squeal from Callie. That's new, Journey said, sitting up. Right? She hasn't said that before, or did we miss it?
It's new.
August confirmed, standing proud.
King, we gotta bounce if we want to make it back before 6.
I was wondering. Callie stood and placed January back in the playpen. Can I come along and get some content for my YouTube channel? August shrugged and walked over to me.
As long as your pop is cool with it. I don't mind.
Kingston wouldn't say no, and Callie celebrated without waiting for his response. I won't let January do anything exciting while you're away, I said as he leaned in to kiss me. Be safe. I love you.
I love you more, Angel Face. Don't do too much today, all right?
He kissed me again.
Oh, and my sisters are stopping by. Something about last-minute baby shower details.
I groaned, but my despair about baby shower planning went away as Kingston approached with my food. August had already fed us so I could take my vitamins and iron pill, but my appetite was endless these days, a far cry from a few months ago when nothing would stay down.
Be good for Mama, okay, Snowflake?
August murmured as he leaned into the playpen and kissed the top of her head. Once they were gone, Journey turned to me and said, he told her to be good for Mama. Mm-hmm. I hummed, mouth full. I might have had a little moment before y'all got here. What kind of moment? I really didn't want to talk about it, but my sister knew how to pull information out of a person without much effort on her part. Or maybe deep down, I knew this was exactly what I needed to be talking about. I guess, I don't know. I shrugged. He's her dad, you know, by blood, and I'm not her mom, just the woman her father loves deeply. She cut in, brows raised. The woman who's carrying her sibling. The woman who has never once turned her nose up at being present in the life of someone else's child. For all intents and purposes, you are her mother, and time will only prove it to be true. Yeah, I know. Journey regarded me closely and sighed. This isn't about fear of not being accepted by her, is it? Wasn't it? Sounds to me like you know more than I do. January released a guttural cry that startled us into action. I'd only been standing halfway when Journey returned with the fussy baby in question. Girl, sit down, she said, chuckling. Why would you even think you had to get up if I'm sitting here? I plopped down while saying, because you aren't good with... January screamed, flailing her arms and legs around. In the midst of her breakdown, she spotted me and started to reach. Her fingers and body stretched in my direction, and Journey chuckled. It's okay, I know, she cooed, handing the spoiled little girl over along with the pacifier she'd spit out. If this wasn't confirmation enough, I don't know what else to tell you. What's the matter, Snowflake? She dropped her head on my shoulder and sniffed, but the screams were no more. I guess it is close to your nap time. I sat her on my belly and maneuvered her head to my chest. She moved around a little, gathering the fabric of my shirt between her fingertips, before settling with having them inside my shirt. I'm afraid of not being here one day, I whispered. What if the same thing that happened to Chandra happens to me? January will never even know I was here for her. Maybe that's why I want so badly to hear her say mama. It's stupid and selfish. It's love, Journey said, sliding close to us. She rested her head on my shoulder and sighed. You love her, and even though she can't verbally say it back, January loves you too. Stop working yourself into a frenzy over the what-ifs. You're alive and well and experiencing a once-in-a-lifetime kind of love. Be in the moment and let the rest come as it may. I nodded and murmured, I wish Mommy could be here to see this. Mommy is here, but I know what you mean. You wish she was here for you to witness her witnessing this. I smiled. Yeah, exactly that. We sat with one another in silence. mixed up in our separate thoughts. A commotion from outside the house came right on time. There was a limit on how long I could be left to think about my mother before sadness crept in and took over. Are they always so loud? Journey asked as August's sisters argued about if they should knock or use one of their keys. They don't do this at work. Always, I mused wistfully. Can you let them in, please? I loved their perfect mix of chaos and calm. Journey, you're just the woman I wanted to see, June said, and even though I couldn't see her face yet, I knew she was smiling. If it has to do with contracts, please spare me. June laughed as September said, she doesn't know how to not work these days. Mind your business, Tim. Eventually, they were in eyesight and I felt part of the conversation. Hey, baby mama, July greeted, plopping down next to me. I love seeing you in mom mode. I gathered myself to respond, but she moved the conversation back to being in June's business so smoothly that I missed my chance. June's been thinking about mergers lately, she said, eyes on Journey. Investing in smaller, failing distilleries and making them part of the Hanson brand. Since August wants to expand, we can work both his angle and this one. My sister perked up at that. She talked a big game but loved brainstorming with them, especially as their in-house counsel. All mergers and acquisitions would fall within her purview. This is where I shine, she boasted. I'll compile a list of potentials. June nodded and clapped. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk baby shower. She turned her big brown eyes on me and smiled. You're literally glowing. I touched my face. Am I? Everyone nodded, and my cheeks warmed. Anyway, she went on, never missing a beat. Everything is set and ready to go. Just need to know what's your favorite flower. I blinked. That's it? I thought we were going to be talking about this forever. Nah, we didn't want you stressing, Journey mused. I glanced at my sister, eyes wide. You've been helping? Of course, September chimed in as Journey nodded. It'd be absurd for us to throw you a shower and not include your sister and best friend. Bea had class and couldn't stop by today. Ugh, my eyes got all watery and I couldn't stop the tears even if I tried. That's really sweet, I cried. Wow, I love you guys. We love you too, July said, patting my back. Please stop crying, though. August made us promise not to make you cry, and we've already failed. I snorted, and it woke January. She looked around but stayed against my chest. I need to capture this moment, September declared, pulling out her phone. As her sister snapped multiple photos, June said, even though Bea and Journey know, everything about you, no one knew your favorite flower. 4 sets of eyes waited for my response, and oddly enough, I didn't have one. Oh, I shrugged. Daffodils will do. Yellow or white or mix. June blinked. Really? She asked softly. That's our favorite flower. The 3 of them lifted their right hands, showing off the daffodil tattooed on the fleshy part near their thumbs. August shared the same one. I know. I nodded. I guess I've never really had a favorite flower, but I like what it stands for. New beginnings. Rebirth. It was a reminder that after every storm, there was a rainbow out there somewhere trying its best to bring color back into the world. I guess I officially had a favorite flower now.
Chapter 32. August. Daffodils. Are you sure? I asked Kingston, certain Corey had never mentioned those being her favorite flower. That doesn't sound right. How would you know what sounds right if you didn't know the answer in the first place? He asked, earning a snicker from our backseat passenger.
Hey guys.
Callie started, addressing her camera.
This is the very first vlog on my channel, and it's a special one. If you don't know, I'm Callie Rain, and I sing and write music. I also play a few instruments, but that isn't what today is about.
Kingston wore a tiny smirk as he drove us away from the tuxedo rental place and toward our next destination. He was entertained with Callie re-recording her introduction for the 10th time. She wanted to perfect it.
I'm with my dad and Uncle August.
Callie went on.
Well, he's not my uncle yet, but he will be soon. We just finished finalizing the details of the surprise wedding ceremony he planned.
She thrust the camera between the seats and angled it to put us both in frame.
This is August.
I tipped my head and she rolled her eyes.
He doesn't talk much, but he loves my aunt, right?
Yeah, I said, feeling the need to verbally respond. Very much. Callie's big eyes brightened as she fell back into her seat.
See, here's something you should know about August. He speaks when it matters most, or when he's talking to my aunt.
She paused and then addressed us after cutting the camera off.
Okay, I think that take was much better. Also, he doesn't have a favorite flower.
Journey and Kingston raised one hell of a kid. She was also great at changing conversations and then bringing them back to the topic at hand without much effort. She chose mine then, I murmured as Kingston rolled to a stop near the barn at the distillery. Workers were moving about the grounds, going in and out of the two large tents set up for my and Corey's wedding, one for the ceremony and the other for the reception. Callie wedged herself between the seats, sans camera, and asked,
Why is the daffodil your favorite?
I showed her the tattoo on my right hand. One thing I remember most about my childhood are the daffodils at my grandparents' house. They sat in vases, grew from flower beds, and hung from the porch. My grandmother was kind of obsessed with them. I chuckled thinking of her. I looked to Kingston for the okay to talk about death with Callie, and he nodded. When she passed, my sisters and I wanted something to remember her by and got the matching tattoos. Because I'm not good at taking care of plants, I don't buy them.
But they're still your favorite.
She stated. Yeah, still my favorite. Callie lifted her phone and smiled.
I hope it's okay that I voice recorded that.
She pushed her door open and hopped out.
My wedding video is gonna be awesome.
Kingston sat back, eyes on Callie as she got film near the gazebo. She adores Corey, he said, glancing over at me. The bond between aunt and niece is different, and I want to make sure she'll keep that connection. I frowned. Why wouldn't she keep that connection? I'm asking you to make sure that doesn't happen. Only after Mia and Lily joined Callie did Kingston turn to me. Not because I don't trust you or your intentions. We're boys, more like brothers, and I trust you. He looked away. I won't let it happen, I said, gripping his shoulder. You know now that I'm here, you don't have to carry the weight of being their protectors alone anymore, right? Might take me a while to get used to that. He tipped his head toward the windshield. Incoming. From the corner of my eyes, I could see Mia making her way over and rolled my window down. She leaned her head through it a few seconds later with a smile on her face.
Those two are gonna be lifelong friends, I can tell.
She mused, eyes moving between Kingston and me.
June texted and said Corey chose daffodils. Is that right?
Her brows dipped, knowing the significance to our family. Yeah, that's right. I watched a barrage of emotions cross her face before disappearing as laughter from afar stole her attention.
Anyway,
She went on, turning back.
mostly everything else is set and ready to go for Saturday. Your only job is to tell the bride-to-be, all right? Leave the stressful shit up to the rest of us.
We should head out, Kingston said, eyes moving from me to Mia. You sure it's cool for Callie to hang here until we get back?
Isn't that what was planned?
She queried, brows raised.
Callie is family now. She's safe wherever a Hanson is. Plus, from the shrill of giggles I hear, Lily is on a cloud having a cousin her age around.
He nodded and hit the push to start. We'll be back around 5, I said, leaning out the window as she straightened and took a step back. Callie's getting filmed for a vlog, so let her explore, but with one of the distillers if it's upstairs. Mia nodded and turned away.
Send pics of the water up there. I know it's beautiful,
she said over her shoulder as I rolled my window up. GPS says 2.5 hours. I checked the time on my phone and nodded. We're making good time. I hope it's worth the trip. Norbank Shores would be worth it. I had a feeling I'd stumbled upon a special community and needed to see how I could contribute. It sat on a shoreline near Lake Michigan, east of Detroit. The population was 11,000 as of 2020, making it small enough for everyone to know just about everyone, but big enough that it wasn't considered a small town. Grab a few scenery videos for Callie, Kingston said, as we rowed down the shore toward the town in question hours later. She's going to be upset when she sees them. I chuckled and grabbed my phone, changing the camera settings to get the best quality possible. I might like it already, I murmured, panning my camera in Kingston's direction to get the views from his window. We could spend summers with the family out here to get away from the hustle of the city. You think there's enough real estate in the area to buy? I shrugged. I wouldn't want to take away from full-time residents. There are ways to fix that, he said, but getting to know the town first might be best. He merged into the far left lane and pointed. Coming up a few feet ahead of us was a "Welcome to Norbank Shores" sign. It was carved into the wood, giving a 3D effect that had me snapping more than a few pictures. The only exit leading into town from the highway came up quickly. Shit, Kingston cursed, swerving over just before we missed it. If we hadn't known where we were going already, that would have been an easy miss. I nodded. Definitely, I agreed, leaning forward as flickers of the town came into view. Kingston slowed, and I pulled up a digital map I found on the Norbank Shores official website. I flipped it around a few times and then zoomed in. All right, this is City Hall, I told him, pointing to the building sitting in the center of a turnabout. There's the library, Secretary of State, and Mayor's office. We moved deeper into the quaint town, passing an elementary and high school along the way. The road split into two, left leading into a residential area, while the right led us toward downtown. We went right, and everything came to life right before our eyes, and just as I imagined, this wasn't any old, ordinary town. I think we found our people. Kingston wasn't wrong, and the sea of black and brown faces staring at the foreign car entering their domain proved it. They were having some kind of event. Damn. There's an empty spot right there, I told him, pointing to a space behind an almost identical G-Wagon to the one I had back home. He parked and I hopped out, sniffing the air as something savory filled my nose. Kingston joined me, and we glanced at one another, both saying simultaneously, "Barbecue." We started toward the tent with smoke blowing from under it. "You two new?" the burly man standing behind the table asked, his brows raised. I nodded. "I'm August, and this is Kingston." He started piling 2 styrofoam containers with food. "August and Kingston. I'm Bernie." His gaze drifted between us. "Where you from?" "Detroit," Kingston replied, taking the food without question. "I own a construction business, and August's family owns a distillery." Bernie handed me the covered container, and I flipped it open, gaze roving over the macaroni and cheese, baked beans, green beans, and ribs. I filled my fork with a little bit of everything, said a small prayer, and stuffed my mouth. "The fuck?" I cursed, stunned at the flavor profiles mixed together. Bernie smiled and nodded. "I know about owning a family business. Bernie's has been in mine for 4 generations." "You're Bernie the 4th?" Kingston asked, barely keeping his laughter in. "The one and only," Bernie boasted proudly. "Welcome to Norbank Shores. You'll be the talk of town for a week straight. I hope you aren't here to stir up shit." "Nah," I said, shaking my head. "We want to contribute, but had to see for ourselves what we'd be contributing to." He nodded, but I wasn't sure he believed us. When you've witnessed non-black faces changing black neighborhoods all over the country, washing away the culture one luxury high-rise at a time, a new face in this slice of heaven deserved to be met with skepticism.
Never seen you two around here before.
An older lady with a small tea hat on spoke as we walked the small pavilion, taking in some of the other businesses from town with tents. She sat on a bench with her legs crossed and a cane to her left. It looked as if she were fresh from Sunday service, though it was only Thursday. "First time," I said, lifting my half-eaten platter from Bernie's. We smelled the barbecue. She narrowed her raven-colored eyes and snorted.
All the way from the highway?
Kingston chuckled and took a seat to her right as I filled the one to her left. "To be honest," he started, leaning back, "we drove down from Detroit to see Norbank Shores specifically."
Big shot developers, I bet.
She grumbled, ready to write us off.
We don't need...
"My family has owned a distillery in the city for 6 generations," I told her. "Recently, a new generation took over." I smiled at the way she squinted in my direction. We expanded, and now we're looking to reach other cities.
And why'd you pick our little town?
She asked, some of the disgust present before, now missing. I don't have an exact answer to that, I shrugged. Just a feeling that this is where it's meant to be. In a town that will appreciate what a black man and woman started in their garage.
You two a couple?
She asked, changing topics. I chuckled, shaking my head. We grew up together, Kingston shared. I have a wife and an 11-year-old daughter. The older woman's keen eyes met mine.
And you?
I have an almost wife, 6-month-old daughter, and one on the way. We still don't know if it's a boy or a girl. She hummed, focusing her attention in front of us. There were a group of teenagers walking down the paved road, talking and laughing over one another. A few spotted us and pointed, whispering to each other as they gawked.
This is a family town,
she said, waving her slender brown fingers.
We look after one another and do a little gossiping on the side.
I smirked and nodded. Is that your way of letting us know that by the time we're home, everyone will know who the unknown visitors were? She grinned, a little mischievous glint shining in her eyes.
Well, if you want to bring your business here, it's best they know now.
Does that mean you approve? Kingston asked, after we glanced at one another and stood. She shrugged.
Only time will tell if you two are good for Norbank or not. God will handle you accordingly if it's the latter.
Her gaze landed on me, and she tipped her head.
What's the name of your family's business?
Hanson Distillery Company. I could see her mentally storing that information for later.
On the north side of town is the warehouse district.
She informed us.
Or what used to be.
I started to ask what happened to it, but she looked away, ending the conversation. Kingston and I took the hint and drove north of downtown right into the deserted warehouse district. We parked on the street and got out, gazes looking both ways at the real estate sitting empty, but surely costing the town money to keep standing. I told you, I said, leaning against the hood of his truck. We were meant to find this place. You were right, Kingston agreed, chuckling. We took in the quietness for a short while and left town on the guise of returning soon. Real soon. As planned, by 5 in the evening, we were back in the city. We stopped by the distillery to pick up Callie and then went straight to my place where Journey was waiting for her ride. Once the family of 3 were on their way home, I went in search of Corey after learning she'd complained of a headache and went to bed early. My sisters had taken January with them, but I still ducked my head into her room and glanced around. I couldn't believe how big she'd gotten or that she could speak. It was all surreal, but I enjoyed being a father to her. I noticed the door to my bedroom was slightly ajar and slipped through it to avoid that little squeak it made when in motion. Even in the dark, the outline of Corey's silhouette was visible to me.
You're home.
She whispered. Surprised to find her awake, I stripped from everything but my briefs and climbed into bed. I'm home, I murmured, molding my body to hers from behind. We weren't technically living together, but hadn't spent a night apart in months. Our days would continue to start and end together in the new house after the baby was born. Corey placed her fingers against mine and guided them to a bulge in her side. A small kick against my palm brought a smile to my face.
How her kid knows their daddy.
She said. How's your head? I asked, caressing the little foot poking from her skin until it retracted and the skin evened out.
I slept with my headache cap on for a little and it worked wonders. No fever and my blood pressure is normal. Please don't worry.
Instead of reminding her that worrying for her would probably never change, I let us fall into a comfortable silence and drifted off for a short while. I have a question, but you can only say yes, I murmured as I forced myself awake and walked to the other side of the bed. I tapped the bedside lamp once, and it illuminated the room a fraction. Damn, you look sexy as fuck like that. Blinking sleep away, Corey smiled. She rolled on her back with the sheet pulled over her, legs poking out and belly sitting high. I grabbed my phone and took a few pictures, wanting a visual memory of this stage of her pregnancy.
What's the question?
She asked, watching me climb into bed and go straight for her bump. I snatched the sheet away from her body and kissed down the darkened linea nigra. Everything that visibly changed about her body, Corey Googled. And because of that, everyone who was willing to listen knew the actual name of the black line most women got on their stomachs during pregnancy, especially women of color. Will you marry me on Saturday? I asked, lifting my gaze to meet hers.
But the baby shower is Saturday.
Was the first thing out of her mouth.
And I don't have a dress.
She went on, trying to sit up but having a hard time with her bump.
Nothing will fit me.
I admired her persistence to get into a sitting position without my help, and only when she reached for me did I assist. I have that covered, I averred, lifting her chin with my index finger. You trust me, right?
With all of me.
She replied without pause. Make me a husband this Saturday and prove it. The way her eyes sparkled made all the planning worth it. I reached into the bedside dresser drawer and grabbed the ring box I'd been hiding there all this time. She never opened the one on my side, making it the smartest place to stash it. Corey eyed the ring box, her gaze widening by the second.
Let me see it.
She requested excitedly, pulling the sheet over her bare breast. I flipped the top open, and as her eyes settled on the exact ring she'd asked for, she squealed. I hope 2 carats is enough, I murmured, pulling it from the box and slipping it on her finger. We can always upgrade it and...
August, you aren't touching my ring. It's so goddamn beautiful.
She dangled her hand in front of her face.
I have to get up.
She decided, pushing me away.
There's so much I need to do with so little time.
I chuckled and fell back, pulling her with me at an angle that would protect her belly. Lay down, woman. I turned the lamp off and climbed over her, molding my body to hers from behind again. You don't have shit to do but cuddle and sleep with your man. She huffed a little, but I knew she liked being in my arms.
How long have you had my ring?
She murmured, backing her ass into me. Picked it up from being sized a month ago. I tucked my hand under her belly and closed my eyes. You said yes, and I swiped my card the next day. Nothing would stop me from making her a Hanson.
Chapter 33. Corey. I startled myself awake, sitting up a little too fast for my own good. Shit, I cursed, taking a few breaths. Sorry, little one. Ugh, my belly was way too big and making me less agile than usual. I managed to get out of bed and stretched the minute I was on my feet. There was a lot of commotion happening downstairs, but upon hearing the shower running, I decided to head in that direction first, while smiling down at my engagement ring.
Good morning.
August greeted as I entered and began to strip, his gaze slated keenly in my direction. Before joining him, I shut the bathroom door. Morning, handsome, I replied softly, trying to wrap my arms around him from behind. Never works anymore. He chuckled and turned, pinning those pretty browns on me the moment he could.
You'll be back in action in no time.
His fingers gently roamed my bare skin, leaving a trail of goosebumps in their wake.
Love the way you react to my touch.
He mused, kissing down the side of my neck.
And you smell like me. Was your plan to seduce me?
I giggled like a fucking schoolgirl. Not purposely. I kissed his chest and then dropped my head against the wall, eyes on his. But I think no matter what, it'll always feel like I'm seducing you. There wasn't a soul who could convince me that I wasn't this man's end-all to be-all, his obsession, the love of his life. Not a fucking soul. You asked me to marry you tomorrow, I whispered, almost scared to repeat it. How would we even pull something like that off on such short notice?
I asked, and you said yes.
He reminded me.
Now let me scrub you down, and then feed you before the chaos begins.
He spun me toward the shower head with a smirk plastered on his face. Chaos. After showering and dressing in a loose-fitting lounge set, I understood what August meant. Hi, Corey. I'm Georgina, a petite woman with dark brown skin, a blonde fade, and piercings in her lip, nose, and eyebrow. Your fiancé hired my team to assist in finding your wedding dress. She pointed to the several racks of zipped garment bags. I promise there's something here you'll love. I touched my belly. But will it fit? I asked, concerned. Her smile widened and I admired her straight teeth. That's my specialty, she boasted, earning nods from her 3-person team. Find the dress you can't absolutely say no to, and then let me handle the rest. I was at a loss for words. If August had done this for me, what else had he managed to do?
Give us about 30 minutes, Georgie.
August chimed in from the kitchen.
Corey needs to eat, and then she'll be all yours.
Georgie? You know her personally? I asked, sliding into a stool at the counter. He glanced at me as he plated a fried egg and 2 pieces of bacon.
Georgina Hanson,
he said, chuckling.
Don't think I've ever seen you jealous before.
I scoffed and rolled my eyes, but made sure to drop my head and hide the smile forming. August didn't call people by nicknames unless he knew them. But I'd never heard of a Georgina before. His family was so damn big. Keeping up with who's who was hard. Don't let him pull your card like that, Corey, Georgina said with a smile from the living room. Besides, my last name is Green now. Please respect my husband. August snorted.
Your husband stole you away from us, and I'm supposed to respect him?
I could tell it was all in jest and smiled at their banter. I live all of 5 hours away, Georgina said, throwing her hands in the air. He set breakfast in front of me with sliced pineapples added to the mix, a cup of apple juice, and my vitamins. Thank you. I looked up and poked my lips out for a kiss, to which he obliged. For everything you do.
My world revolves around you.
He tipped my head back and regarded me closely, eyes soft with adoration.
I hope you figured it out by now.
He pointed to the food and backed away.
Eat.
I obeyed, starving but also eager to try on dresses. Fuck. Were we really doing this? August had disappeared upstairs for a short while, and by the time he'd returned, I'd finished breakfast and cleaned up my mess. He stepped in front of me with my phone in hand as I popped my vitamins, grimacing at the lingering taste before the apple juice washed it away.
Your sister and my mom will be here in about 20 minutes.
He informed me before leaning forward to kiss my belly.
Don't do too much, all right?
I nodded and glanced at the carry-on-sized suitcase he'd brought down with him. Are you leaving? He chuckled a little and extended the handle.
Did you forget we're getting married tomorrow? Already? I can't see the bride or her dress until the big day.
But he silenced me with a passionate kiss that drew me to the tips of my toes, needing more before he left me for the day.
Allow me to make this easy for you.
He muttered into my mouth.
Your dress, hair, and makeup, shoes, and accessories. It's all taken care of. All you need to do is pick from the plethora of options available to you and relax.
I don't know what to do with myself.
It's a good thing I know exactly what to do with you.
He backed away, and I wanted to follow, but stood my ground.
Let Georgie help. It's what she does best. And I trust her.
Finally, something nice out of that mouth of yours, Georgie said, moving around racks to clear space for him to get by. Don't worry, I got this. Go handle your business. I watched August leave, following him to the door and standing in it until he pulled away. Hey, Georgie met me in the hall and smiled. You'll see him tomorrow. I nodded and followed her into the living room. Can we wait until my sister and Adrena get here? Of course. She pointed to the sofa and I took a seat. Let me officially introduce you to the team. The three women she'd brought with her were Enna, Kalia, and Kira. Each had different areas of expertise. Enna was a stylist and jeweler. She brought accessories galore to pair with the dress options Georgie brought. Kalia did makeup and was already swatching shades to find my perfect match. Kira was a hairstylist who owned the salon next door to Georgie's studio showroom. I learned after asking a few more questions that Georgina was a wedding dress designer. She had a large studio and wedding dress shop in downtown Chicago, where she and her husband lived. Enna and Kira were her childhood best friends. Which parent of yours is related to August's dad? I asked. The look of sadness that zipped through her eyes caught me off guard. It's okay if... No. She shook her head and smiled. My dad was the youngest and wildest, a Rolling Stone kind of guy. He passed when I was 15, the same year August and the girls were born. I blinked, eyes widening. Damn, girl. I whistled. You look good. She chuckled and did a little spin. My parents had me young, so I'm the oldest of our little gang. They're all my babies, and I didn't realize how much I missed by being in Chicago. A knock at the front door, and the sound of Callie's voice singing my name got our whirlwind of a day started before I could hug Georgina about her dad. Georgie, baby, Adrena greeted with arms wide open and smile bright. I've missed your beautiful face. Georgina lit up at the sight of her. Hey, Auntie, you're looking good, girl. Where did these hips come from? Callie giggled with her camera out, pointing it every which way to capture as much as she could. Adrena scoffed, but twisted her hips to show off what Georgie spoke of. She and September had similar body types, thick but slender from their height. All right. Georgie clapped and moved toward the rack closest to her. Now, I pulled these pieces based off August's description of your taste. I stepped forward as she pulled the first garment bag and gave it to Enna to hold up. As she unzipped, pieces of the dress fell out, and a smile formed before I even saw the rest. How did August describe my taste? I asked, following the intricate lace detail with my eyes. It wasn't the one, but my God, it was beautiful. Delicate, Enna said, smiling. He said your style was reserved. Georgie added, never too revealing, but always just enough. And if you are going for a risque look, it's a subtle show-off of legs, shoulders, and a slither of cleavage. I smiled. I take it he knows you well from the smile, Callie mused from her accessory table. Yeah, I nodded. He does. What's this one called? I asked, taking in the sweetheart neckline stitched to perfection. This is Vina from last year's fall collection. It's beautiful, I whispered, caressing the fabric. But not the one. I nodded, feeling a little bad about it. Georgina squeezed my forearm and smiled. This is your day. You can't hurt my feelings, I promise. Besides, she shrugged and stuffed the dress back into the garment bag. I know you'll find the one. We went through a few more options. All were equally beautiful, but didn't call to me. For a second, I thought all hope was lost, but then Enna came over and whispered something to Georgie that had her lips curling deviously. They're up to something, Journey said softly from beside me. Callia had set up her makeup chair to avoid me lowering myself on the sofa over and over when I got tired. I brought something no one has seen yet, Georgina explained, waving for Callie to follow. It's for this year's fall collection. I sat up a little, intrigued. Is it runway size? She sifted through garment bags until finding the one she'd been looking for. I would never bring a runway-size dress for a 7-month pregnant woman, she griped, no real malice in her cadence. When I designed this dress, it was with the idea that I'd have a pregnant model wear it. Inspiration sparked one night, and this, Callie helped her unzip the dress, is what I came up with. Oh my God, Journey murmured as Adrena pulled in an audible breath. This dress was breathtakingly beautiful. It wasn't quite white, more on the ivory side with a hint of blush pink showing through when the light hit it at the right angle. The fabrics were a mix of tulle, lace, and satin. I stood and moved closer, ignoring the camera Callie shoved in my face. This embroidery is insane, Georgie, I murmured, enjoying the feel of it on my fingertips. And the stitched flowers. I don't have words. The embroidered flowers and veins were weaved in with a freestyle design that curled around the floral satin arrangements extending from the dress. It was a mix of roses and daffodils, running from the top of the skirt through the seams of the deep V-neck and over the shoulders. What's this one called? I asked, breaking the silence. Corey, meet Regina. I allowed my fingers to get lost in the layered tulle skirt and smiled. That is a perfect name for a perfect dress. I want to try it on. Callie squealed. I can't believe I caught all of that, she exclaimed, lowering the camera. August is going to love the— What are you up to, Callie Rain? I questioned, gaze narrowed. She took a few steps back and then raced around me to get to Journey. I followed her movements and eventually met eyes with my sister. You two were in on this, weren't you? I asked, finally putting the pieces together. The baby shower was never a damn baby shower. Excuse my language, Miss Adrena. Did this child have my brain so muddled that my ability to read the room disappeared? In their defense, Adrena chimed in, drawing my attention to her. August wanted this to be perfect. He knew the only way to do that was with the help of your family. I wasn't upset, just overwhelmed with how much everyone loved me. I don't get it, I whispered, looking at Adrena. She closed the distance between us and wrapped her fingers gently around my biceps to hold me in place. What is it you don't get? She asked, her gaze peering through my soul. Is it that my family has not only welcomed you with open arms, but grew to love you on their own accord? I found it hard to look away from her. Yes, I admitted. I know what it's like to be thrust into the Hanson fold. But once you're in, that's it. They'll love and protect you for life, even after you slap them around a little, but only if they deserve it. Georgie snorted and said, "Don't take that advice, Corey. She's trouble." Adrena smirked and then pulled me into a tight embrace. "This is my promise to your mother," she whispered in my ear. "I got you now." I sobbed, the tears pooling from my eyes harder than I think ever. It wasn't sadness I felt, but relief. The guilt of moving on with my life and finding happiness in the midst of my grief lifted from my shoulders. Everything was okay. I was okay. More arms and bodies wrapped around us, and a sense of security filled me. "Oh!" Adrena squealed, tossing her arms out to break up the bunch. "A kick!" I grimaced. Whew. I touched my stomach, trying my best to soothe their little kicks and punches. "I know you're excited about Nana hugging us." I smiled at Adrena, so grateful to be accepted by her. "Me too." "All right," Georgie clapped. "Let's get this dress on you and figure out what type of adjustments it'll need." Anna and Georgie helped me into it, and then circled me like vultures while tossing out where and what needed to be taken in or out. Kira brought over veils and pieces of jewelry that Anna left out. Eventually, Kalia made her way over and showed me makeup palettes. "I'm thinking we'll go blush pink and gold with the eyeshadow. You have lash extensions in, but if you trust me, I'd like to put a strip set on top of it with magnetic liner. It'll give a smoky eye effect without the dark makeup." I nodded. "If Georgie trusts you, then so do I." She smiled, and I knew the creative inside of her was excited for tomorrow. "Hear me out," Anna started as she made her way over with the weird headpiece in hand. "The details in this dress can't be covered by an ordinary veil. And you have this thick, curly hair that I think should be showcased," Kira chimed in, bringing her phone over to show me an inspiration picture. "The headpiece she has is made of the embroidery detail on the dress. I'd have to weave it in like the picture, but your hair is dense enough to hold it well." "Let us show you," Anna said, as they started to work around me in unison. After a minute or two of being fussed over, Georgie led me to the wall mirror. "Wow," I murmured, rolling fingers over the tulle that covered my bump. "I can't believe this part fits. We actually need to take more in than not, probably because you're naturally small." "I want this," I declared, feeling whole. This is it. It had been all they needed to hear, and everyone got to work. Anna and Georgie on the alterations, Kira on washing and doing a 2-strand twist set on my hair that would be unraveled tomorrow. Journey and Adrena found themselves in the kitchen cooking, while Callie walked around asking everyone questions with the camera in their face. "This is the bride-to-be," she said, approaching where I sat. "How did you and August meet?" I shifted and smiled. "In the driveway of your parents' home," I said truthfully, even though I was thinking of what followed afterward. "Nice," she said. "Now tell the people what you love most about August." She'd put me on the spot, but the words flowed effortlessly out of me. "I love the way he speaks to me with his eyes," I explained, thinking of those whiskey browns. "The way he respects and adores the women in his family. I love how free he is with me, his honesty and loyalty. I love that he's a dedicated father." Realizing that I'd went well over my time and all eyes were on me, I closed my mouth. "Sorry, I got carried away." "Don't apologize," Georgie said from the sewing station she'd set up. "That was beautiful, and it's good to know that August is being seen and loved for who he is. We all deserve that kind of love." "Mom laughs at Dad's corny jokes. Does that count as loving him for who he is?" Callie asked, earning a few snickers and a half-hearted threat from Journey. "Trust me, there's a lifetime of that to come," Adrena mused, gathering support from the married girls. "August is actually pretty funny," I said, shrugging. "Show off," Georgina accused through a fake cough. "August is actually pretty funny," Georgina and Adrena mocked before bursting into laughter. I couldn't believe those two were ganging up on me, or why I was smiling because of it. Haters. I mumbled under my breath, sticking my tongue out at Callie's camera. She giggled and lowered it before crawling on the sofa and resting her head in my lap. I'm glad you're happy, she said softly as I massaged her scalp. Nana must have made sure we'd be okay. Yeah, Buttercup, I agreed, blinking back tears. I think so too. She was all around us, preening at her handiwork. I could feel it. Thank you, Mommy. Later that night, the townhome bustled with August's sisters in the mix. I laid stretched out on the couch with my bonnet on, eyes drooping as June fussed over January's hair. Adrena had put a blanket over me after finding me nodding off a few times. She's still bald like we were, she said, brushing down barely there pieces that stood up. January fought to get away, her eyes taking in all the things to get into around the living room. I watched her while trying to relax my mind in preparation for the big day. Hey, June, I called, losing that battle. She hummed, glancing over. Can you do something for me? She nodded. Sure. What you need? I took a long second to sit up, suddenly wide awake with inspiration. I've been working on something for August for y'all birthday, but I think I want to give it to him before the ceremony tomorrow. Do you think you could bring it to life? I called for Callie to bring my phone and showed her what I meant. June's lips parted in shock, and slowly her eyes met mine. You did that for him? I nibbled on my lip and nodded. I know you guys have— No, she shook her head, eyes filled with tears. This is so— I can't put into words how much I know this will mean to him. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd gone too far and stepped on someone's toes. But the way June was forcing herself not to shed a tear said otherwise. Does that mean you'll help? I asked, hopeful that it could be done. Absolutely. Is it here? I stashed it at my place since we spend more time here. She nodded, gaze wandering as she worked something out in her head. Okay, she determined aloud, smiling. Give me the key to your place and I'll handle the rest. I regarded her closely, worried she might be overextending herself. I was mentally working out when to deliver it to him, she explained, somehow reading my expression. All is good, Corey, I promise. Okay, yeah. I'll get Journey to give you her spare key. And if you know anyone that's looking to rent, let me know. I haven't gotten around to listing my place yet, but I should probably do that before we move into the house since I'm never there. August and I both owned our spots and decided to rent them after we moved into our forever home. Actually, one of our bartenders is looking for a new place. She tapped her chin. She has a kid. I think he's 3 or 4. I'll check to be sure she's still looking and get back to you. I nodded. If she asks how much the rent is, tell her it's whatever her budget will allow. Getting to know you is understanding why my brother fell in love with you. She stood with the half-asleep January clutching her chest. I could feel his happiness, his adoration for you, but now I get it. She shook her head and walked away, leaving me confused, but appreciative of her words. I couldn't investigate longer, because Callie came running in. Can I stay with you instead of coming back in the morning with everyone else? She asked, batting her thick lashes. Mom is about to leave. Yup. I patted her cheeks. But you knew that already. Callie took off without acknowledging that she had me wrapped around her finger, just as my phone vibrated with the text from August.
Strawberry full moon tonight. Watch it with me.
I slowly lifted from the sofa and climbed the stairs to his bedroom. His room had a large window with a treeless view of the sky, and as I expected, the moon sat clear as day from this angle. I took a picture and sent it to him with the message, "Here with you," attached. As I lowered myself on the windowsill bench to watch the moon with my man from a distance, I smiled. No matter where we are, together or apart, August Hansen was always thinking of me.
Chapter 34. August. There There's staff for that, you know. I turned to find Landon ambling toward me, dressed for the ceremony already, his brows lifted. Ignoring him, I placed the picture of Corey's mom on the seat reserved for her, and then next to it, one of her father. They couldn't physically be here, but they'd be here. I wanted Corey to not only feel them on this day, but see them as well. I know, I finally said, walking toward the groom's suite with Landon in tow. Just needed to do that one thing. Landon caught up and pulled the door open, allowing me to walk in before him. Found the groom, he announced, gathering the attention of my dad, Owen, and two uncles. Now that you're done checking behind Mia's work, have a seat and breathe for a moment, Dad said from the barber's chair. You're moving too much when you need to be reflecting, preparing yourself. I shrugged and kicked one leg up on the coffee table. I've reflected enough, and I'm prepared. Owen dropped down next to me and said, Come on, Unc. I know you've seen the way he looks at that girl. August is probably anxious to see her again. I nodded, agreeing with Owen for once. All I care about is this being special for her after everything she's been through. Landon's pop, Lincoln, hummed from the second barber's chair. The bride and groom suites Mia oversaw the design of were top of line and equipped with everything a wedding party would need. In the 600-square-foot room we occupied, there was a mini barbershop with vanity and equipment included in all packages, and fully stocked bar with only premium selections. Though I didn't have a wedding party, I had invited the men in my family to get dressed with me or stop by before the ceremony. You've also been through a lot, Uncle Lincoln said, his gaze on me through the mirror at his station. Don't forget that it should be special for you, too. A chapter is closing, and another one is opening. Listen to Mr. Know-It-All, Landon joked, earning a hard stare from his dad that didn't faze him. Not saying you're wrong, but two things can be true at once. It's special for him because he made it special for her, and that's it. Doesn't need to be more complicated than that. I eyed Landon closely, wondering where that had come from. Before I could question him, JJ walked in with a surprise guest looming at his back. Look who made it to town in enough time, he said, waving to his brother Saeed. Wouldn't miss this for the world, Saeed said, pulling me into a snug embrace after I stood to greet him. Besides, I think I'll be back home for good soon. Saeed had been living and working in Minnesota for about 5 years. He'd left right after he and JJ's mother passed from kidney failure. Out of my father's 10 siblings, 2 weren't with us anymore. That right? I asked, tipping my head. He nodded and moved around the room to greet everyone else. Why the change of heart? Uncle Lincoln asked, squinting at him suspiciously. You running from something? Lincoln had been their mother's twin brother. He took losing her hard. Saeed chuckled. More like running towards something. But today ain't about me. He leaned against the wall near the door and crossed his arms, eyes now on me. So, you got a baby, a soon-to-be wife in the next hour and a half, and a little one on the way. I nodded. Sounds about right. You look happy, he surmised, gaze narrowing a little. Yeah, definitely happy. I opened my mouth to confirm, but JJ cursed and jumped up from his seat, phone clutched tightly in hand. What's the problem? Saeed asked, grabbing him by the arm as he tried to leave. JJ snatched himself free and opened the door. Nothing for you to worry about. I'll be back before the ceremony. The door slammed behind him as he retreated, and Saeed sighed. Why didn't anyone tell me how bad he'd been spiraling? No one could respond to that. JJ had been spiraling for a while, and it didn't really make sense, at least not to me. It started well before Aunt Luna passed, though her death seemed to have sent him over the edge. None of us knew what he'd gotten himself into, but I wasn't in the business of dictating another man's life. When JJ was ready to seek our help, he would. And all any of us could do was pray he did it before shit went left. You have to let him find his way, my dad said, checking his watch. All right, you need to dress, August. It's almost that time. Knowing that she was already here, because of the car I'd scheduled to pick her and her entourage up, didn't stop me from glancing at my phone to check Corey's location. Our little pictured icons were sitting right on top of one another, and I stood. All right, let me make another round and I'll... Landon grabbed me before I could take a step. Everything is good, he said, giving me a wide-eyed look before schooling his features. You're anxious and about to go looking for her without even realizing it. If I hadn't known it, how the hell had he? Kingston entered the suite and glanced between us while shaking his head. Something told me I needed to make my way here, he said, shutting and locking the door. I'll stand guard while you dress. I glanced around the room to find all eyes on me. They were dressed and ready, while I was still in my gray joggers and white t-shirt. I'm tripping, I said as Landon released me. Good looking out. It didn't take long for me to get my classic tux on with the help of my pop. He stood in front of me after I shrugged into my jacket and did a hand sweep down my arms a few times. Our eyes met and I could see what he was feeling. I'm proud of you, he said, before turning to grab what looked like a watch box from Uncle Lincoln. This watch was a gift from your grandfather when I married your mom. He told me it was a reminder to use the time I have with the ones I love wisely. He flipped it open and Landon whistled. A vintage Rolex, I said, more to myself than anyone else. Damn, Pop. I flipped my wrist and unlatched the Movado Corey bought me as a just because gift. After handing it off to Landon, I let the man I loved and respected deeply put the vintage timepiece on my wrist. Got it, Owen blurted, turning his phone for us to see a picture of the exact watch. It's a Tudor Royal from the 50s. Wow, Grams probably got it from his father. He did, Dad confirmed, squeezing my shoulders. I love you. He pulled me in and I murmured the sentiment back, getting a little choked up. Luckily, a knock at the door had us pulling it together quickly. Kingston pushed it open to reveal June and Callie, who was holding January.
Dad.
My little munchkin called, kicked her socked feet. She was in a blush pink dress with a mountain of tulle and bows everywhere. Callie brought her over, and I lifted January in the air, but only once this time, not wanting either of us covered in baby spit up. It wasn't until June started to speak that I noticed the tray cart they'd brought along.
Your bride-to-be wanted to gift you with something before the ceremony.
June explained, rolling the cart closer.
Read this first.
I eyed the ribbon-covered box and handed January to Landon before flipping open the note card. Corey's perfect cursive greeted me, and I smirked, obsessed with everything about her.
August. This was supposed to be part of your birthday gift, but I couldn't allow this momentous day to pass without you receiving it. Life took us on a journey neither expected, but we made it. Our lives, before and after the storm, deserve to be watered equally. When we met, you were in the beginning stages of launching your very own whiskey. You were so proud of the product you'd produced with your own hands. I'll never stop thanking you for allowing me to be part of your exclusive tasting club. As your biggest fan and supporter, I hope this gift is what you need to finish what you started. Always yours, Corey.
I tucked the card inside my jacket as June lifted the box. Underneath sat a classic-shaped whiskey bottle with deep ridges down the sides and what looked to be a daffodil flower etched into the front. Inside, an amber liquid swished as I tipped it from side to side. It was sealed, the top shaped like a diamond. "This isn't one of ours," I said, brushing my fingers down it. "Perfect bottle, though." I lifted it. "And sturdy." June nodded.
I thought so too.
She said, smiling.
Corey had that made for you, and I got it sealed this morning by the grace of God. It pays to have connections.
Everyone moved in after June explained, but I found myself taking one back. She did this for me. It wasn't that I had forgotten about my whiskey. I'd just been focused on other shit, like making sure Corey didn't have another pregnancy scare. The idea of that alone made it hard for me to focus on anything else but my family. Lately, my whiskey had been on my mind, though, and Corey's gesture felt like a sign I needed to listen to. Noticing Callie recording, I looked right in the camera and said, "You and me, Mrs. Hanson." Clutching the bottle in my hands, I cracked the seal. "Grab a few glasses," I said to no one in particular. "Let's have a toast." Kingston had been the one to oblige. He set them on the cart, and I poured a finger of whiskey in each. Once everyone had their glasses lifted, sans Callie, who was walking around the group getting her footage, I made my toast. To love and wisely using our time. Landon clapped and gripped my shoulders after knocking his back. "Phew, let's do this." Kingston opened the door, and everyone filed out one by one, leaving me to step into the late summer heat last. As the door shut behind me, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This next chapter of my life was called happiness.
Epilogue One. Corey. January 1. October 6 months. Ouch, Mama, January whined, showing me her finger. Hurts. She stood at the edge of the couch, lip poked out, while I rocked a grumpy October to sleep. I smiled and shook my head at the dramatic display before me. Let's see. I took her finger and examined it closely. Ah, I mused, pretending to see the issue. There are only two things that can make this better. A lot of kisses from Mommy, or... August crept up on her from behind, ready to attack.
"Or a whole lot of kisses from Daddy."
He roared into her neck before tossing her little body in the air. Daddy! She screeched, happy to see her main man. We'd perfected getting in and out of our forever home undetected, especially with both girls hating when either of us had to leave.
"Hey, beautiful."
August greeted, dropping a kiss on my forehead and then lips. After getting his fill, he firmly kissed Miss Grumpy's forehead. October Lee Hansen made her debut 1 month after our wedding. It was a rainy day in September, and though she'd come a little early, she was healthy as an ox with a fierce attitude, especially now that she was teething. The cake got delivered today, I told him, laying my head back. She won't remember it, but the pictures will be nice. Yesterday was January's official first birthday, but we were celebrating with the party at her Nana and Pop-Pop's house tomorrow. August went to check it out with the birthday girl hanging sideways in his arm, while I managed to escape the death grip of our youngest. With her resting safely in the pack-and-play, I stretched my limbs and met him in the kitchen. I wanted to talk to you about something. I opened the drawer and pulled out the letters Chandra's mother had been sending for months. We have to do something about this. She wanted to reconnect and apologized profusely in every letter, including the newest one. Motherhood had softened me already because I felt for the woman. Yesterday made a year since her daughter passed during childbirth. A year since life and death rocked two families. It had to be hard for her, and while I was still team whatever August wanted to do, I secretly had hope he would give her a chance at redemption. We'd been certain that when August began to allow Monique visits with January, Helen would eventually learn of them. The letters started to show up soon after.
I've been thinking about it.
He said, setting a wiggly January on the counter.
She fucked with me when I was at my most vulnerable, and it has been hard to forgive, but deep down, I know January could benefit from that connection to her mom's side in the long run.
I nodded and stepped toward him, wanting to be all in his space. You can start slow. Maybe extend an invite to the party tomorrow through Monique, I suggested, bumping my shoulder with his. Whatever you need to do to be comfortable, that's what we'll do. And now that I'm not pregnant, I can slap the taste out of her mouth if she tries that bullshit again. Shit, January cursed, clapping.
No cursing.
August chastised half-heartedly. She tipped her head, and I knew what was coming next. Shit, Daddy. Her little brown eyes widened, and then she smiled. Shit, Mommy. Shit, shit, shit. I tried my hardest not to laugh, but she was such a funny kid and always testing the limits. Callie had been a mild-mannered baby, even in the infamous Terrible 2 stage. I wasn't sure either of the girls would let us off the hook. August tossed January in the air, his eyes brightening at her laughter. Through her giggles, I could hear soft whine from her sister, and I turned to get her. Always a short napper, huh? I accused, picking my twin up. She had her father's eyes, but resembled me the most, though I had a feeling she'd grow up and suddenly begin to take after him. Dada, she murmured, eyes over my shoulder. I turned to find him standing behind us with January weaving in and out of his legs. October reached for him, and he obliged, smiling down at her.
Hey, baby girl,
he muttered as she dropped her head against his chest. I scoffed, and August beamed at me. She's a little terrorizer when you aren't here, I snitched, frowning as his smile enlarged. You can't just come here and get her to act like a little princess for you. I folded my arms and pouted. August chuckled and tugged me into him, his lips brushing my temples several times before he said,
I'll make it up to you later, angel face.
Our eyes met, and immediately I ducked away, feeling shy.
I love it when you get all shy on me,
he called as I left them to warm dinner up. Later that night, we managed to get both girls down without too much fuss. October usually clunked out after a bottle with cereal mixed in. She devoured those and, like most Black people, was ready to sleep the night away on a full stomach. Now that January was mobile, she was harder to get down, but tonight, she'd fallen asleep with ease. And I was feeling a little smug because it had been me she wanted to cuddle until she was down. I love you, I whispered, my lips against August's ear as I straddled him. So much.
I love you,
he returned, fingers tracing the darkened stretch marks along my sides.
I love these. My very own tiger.
I giggled and fell forward, grateful for a man who loved my old body, but adored the new one just as much. Even when my insecurities wouldn't allow me to, he did it for the both of us.
How quiet do you think you can be?
August asked, flipping us until I was on my back and he was between my thighs. I raked my fingernails down his chest and admired the new ink with our daughters' names and birth dates. Depends on how deep you go, I replied, hooking a leg around his waist to draw him closer. I need deep, baby. He smiled against the skin of my neck and ripped my thong off, exposing my pussy to the chilly room. I sank deeper into the mattress, pushing my hands between us to stroke him until he slapped them away.
Deep.
He kissed me fiercely, biting my bottom lip as he thrust into me.
I can do deep.
Shit, I cried, digging my fingernails in his back. Baby. He shook his head, forehead against mine, as he worked me good and hard. I struggled to keep my whimpers at bay, needing so badly to scream his name, but knowing it would wake the whole house.
Take what you asked for like I know you can.
he murmured, slowing his deep strokes to passionately devour my mouth.
That's my good girl.
I clawed at his skin, breathless. God damn this man for fucking me like it was our first time. He flicked my clit, pinching the nub with enough pressure that it sent me over the edge far quicker than I'd wanted. Fuck.
Mine.
August growled, raining kisses all over my face. Yours, I confirmed through laughter. Always his.
Epilogue 2. August. January 6. October 5.
Like this, Tober.
January said, snatching the marker away from her sister to demonstrate how to properly draw Princess Peach from Super Mario Bros. Corey and I had taken them to see the movie, and both were suddenly obsessed with the badass princess.
Don't snatch, Snowflake.
October retorted, stealing the marker back.
I know how.
A little too bossy for her own good, January looked away and crossed her arms. When she spotted me staring in their direction, she walked over, a pout marring her pretty face. She looked more and more like Chandra as the years passed, though no one seemed to see what I did. Maybe it was her mannerisms, or how she loved prancing around the house like a ballerina. Corey eventually talked me into signing her up for lessons.
Dad, Tober isn't listening.
She complained, big brown eyes filled with contempt.
Can you and Mom have another baby that will listen?
I lifted an eyebrow at her request. Who put you up to that? I questioned, lifting her onto my knee. Corey and I had decided against more kids. A newborn among 2 toddlers wasn't on our list of things to accomplish. Besides that, we liked our family of 4.
I don't know.
She shrugged and watched her sister. Why don't you try helping her without taking the marker she's already using? And after you're finished, go get your book bag and shoes. She hopped off my knee and rushed over to her sister, who hid the marker she was using, but returned to her masterpiece after January reached for her own. It didn't take long for them to come together and draw something that didn't exactly look like Princess Peach, but I saw the vision nonetheless.
When does Grandma come?
January asked as she rounded the corner with the bag Corey packed before she left for work. Soon. I checked my watch and stood. What do you 2 want for a snack?
Peanut butter and jelly!
They yelled in tandem. I'd expected it to be that, but found myself asking them each time in case it changed.
Dad, how soon is soon?
January questioned impatiently.
Grandma promised to take me to Target. I can get anything I want for my birthday.
I tensed at the mention of her birthday. March had come and gone, but Helen was making up for lost time today with an overnight sleepover. She and January were well acquainted and had spent time together with supervision in the beginning stages, but alone over the last 3 years. I trusted that she was sincerely apologetic for her antics 6 years ago. But lately, she'd been missing more and more time with January without a real explanation. Her life was hers, but it was starting to affect my kid, and I took issue with that. I knew she might get a little slower with time and age, but the last I'd seen her, something seemed off. She'll be here by the time you finish this sandwich. I placed 2 plates on the table and waved for them both to sit. Once settled, I returned with apple juice for October and milk for January.
I want milk too, Daddy.
October declared after noticing her sister had it. She typically didn't want milk, but I switched them out without questioning her motives. While they were preoccupied, I called June, away from their bionic ears, for advice.
Hey, brother.
She greeted breathlessly.
Sorry, this kid is driving me wild today.
I chuckled. June, as a mom, was fucking hilarious. If you're busy...
No.
She shouted, startling the fuck out of me.
Don't hang up. I need adult conversation.
Corey talked to you about Helen, right? June sighed.
Yeah, and I think something's off like the both of you. Maybe she's sick and hiding it? That's what your other sisters think.
It crossed my mind. Should I talk to her? I don't want to pry, but Snowflake is starting to notice her absence. When we say Helen is coming, she questions us until the woman shows face. June chuckled a little.
She's so much like September when we were that age.
She mused wistfully.
I think you should have the conversation, but be gentle, August. I know your mind is working up all kinds of theories because of her past actions, but this more than likely isn't that.
All right, I agreed, as the doorbell rang, playing Bowser's love song to Peach.
Is that?
I hung up before she could inquire about the stupid shit Corey and I did for our kids. January and October sang from the kitchen, their little voices carrying a nice tune together. Everything we did was for their happiness, and always would be. I ambled toward the door and pulled it open, revealing Monique on the other side, not Helen. "What's up, Mo?" I greeted, frowning. I thought Helen was.
Can you step out here?
She cut in, tucking her hair behind her ear.
We need to talk.
Reluctant to do so, I regarded her closely. Why?
Because money!
January screeched, rushing past me to get to her aunt.
Where's Grandma? She's meeting us at Target, Snowflake.
Monique explained.
I'm here to take you.
I frowned and directed January to clean her face and lace her shoes while I talked to her aunt. After she darted inside, I stepped out on the porch and shut the door behind me. What's going on? Our eyes met, and she sighed.
Helen is sick and refusing to tell you because she thinks you'll keep January from her.
After accepting her back into our lives,
She's just afraid of dying.
she murmured, lifting and dropping her hands.
I know you still feel a way about what she did all those years ago, but I was hoping you'd have a conversation and reassure her.
How sick is she, Monique?
It's leukemia. She's in the chronic phase, so they caught it early, but her treatments can be brutal.
I nodded, the pieces finally coming together. Is that where she was last month?
She wanted so badly to make the theme park outing, but the day after treatments are always the hardest for her.
I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, pushing my feelings aside for my daughter. I'll talk to her when she drops January off tomorrow. Make sure it's her, even if you have to drive her here. Monique nodded, and I turned to open the door.
I'm ready.
January announced with the biggest smile on her face.
Me too.
October declared, running toward us with shoes and a half-packed bag in hand.
I'm ready.
I shook my head. Baby, you...
If it's all right with you, she can come.
Monique cut in.
The more the merrier.
I wasn't so sure. October had spent time with them before, but never overnight. Let's take a second to check this bag first, I told her, forcing the duo back into the house with Monique in tow. Be right back. I took the bag and jogged up the steps, my phone in hand as I dialed Corey. She picked up my FaceTime call after the third ring, hair flying wild before her eyes met the camera.
Hey, baby, what's that look on your face?
She asked, regarding me closely. I lifted the bag October called herself packing and said, "Your child would like to spend the night with her sister and Helen."
Oh.
Her eyes widened a little as she leaned back in her desk chair.
I don't think we ever saw that coming.
Me either, but I'm not against sending her if you aren't. Corey nodded and then frowned.
Do we know why she's been missing in action lately?
I propped my phone up on the dresser in October's room and started to repack her bag. She has leukemia and is afraid that I won't want January around her.
But
I know. I sighed. I get it, but I wish she'd have said something sooner instead of leaving us to deal with the fallout of her not showing up. She ain't even here to pick them up. Monique is.
She just needs a little reassurance, that's all.
Corey mused, picking up on what I hadn't told her.
You'll give that to her, right? No one deserves to deal with cancer alone.
She looked away briefly, and I wished I could hold her, knowing thoughts of her mother's battle with the disease crossed her mind. I will reassure her, I avowed. Now, tell me you love me, and I'll let you get back to work. Corey smiled and dropped her gaze.
I love you, August Hansen.
I love you to the moon, Corey Hansen. We mutually ended the call after I finished with October's bag. As I entered the living room, the kid in question came running to me with her arms out. Stand with us, Snowflake. I pointed to the spot next to her sister and kneeled before them. I love the both of you with all my heart. After securing their backpacks, I pulled them into me.
I love you, Dad.
January murmured into my chest, holding me tight.
I love you too, Daddy.
October said, her hold equally as firm. Be good for Grandma and Auntie Moni, okay? They nodded, both bouncing on their toes in excitement. Chuckling, I stood and glanced at Monique. They're all yours, and here's some money for both. I handed her a couple $100. Don't let Helen spend a bunch. They already have too much shit between the two of them. Laughing, she ushered the pair toward the door but turned before leaving.
Thank you, August.
She said softly.
This is going to really brighten her week.
It's nothing. Just remind her that life is way too short to hide. I'm not her enemy.
She knows, but I'm sure it'll be nice to hear regardless.
I followed them out, grabbed a spare seat from the garage for October, and helped strap them in. Taking a step back, I watched from the driveway as Monique drove away, honking her horn as a final goodbye. Damn. Now what the fuck was I supposed to do without my girls?
Epilogue 3. Corey. January 10. October 9. Family road trip, I cheered, earning groans from the girls. Aren't you girls excited? We haven't spent the summer in Norbank in 2 years. Norbank Shores had become like a second home to the lot of us. After August successfully launched Hansen Black, his whiskey line, he and his sisters jumped headfirst in opening Hansen Distillery 2.0. Mom, please, Snowflake groused, rubbing her eyes. It's way too early. October nodded, but stopped in her tracks after spotting Callie sitting at the counter. Auntie Callie, she screeched, rushing her favorite person in the world these days. Though she was their cousin, Callie had always wanted to be an aunt, but as an only child, that wouldn't come. So, she declared herself the girls' auntie at an early age, and neither had questioned it as they got older. Callie stood and lifted October off the floor, spinning her slender body in a full circle, before doing the same with January. Mom didn't say you were coming, January said, feigning betrayed. We thought we'd have to deal with her and Dad singing the whole way to the shore. I chuckled at her dramatics. My child was a low-key hater, but I loved her regardless. Don't come for my auntie, Callie said, smiling brightly. Besides, it's her melodic voice on my earlier tracks. Goodness, I couldn't believe my first baby was a junior in college, a music major. She'd grown into her large brown eyes, grew to a tall 5'9", and chopped her big curly hair into a pixie cut like the one September wore before she married and had children. Wait, October stared at me as if she had no clue who I was, before turning to an amused Callie. Mom sang on your records? On Imperfect Harmony? I smirked. Mom also helped your auntie write that one and a few others, I bragged, enjoying the shocked expression on her and January's faces. She was only 11 when she started her YouTube journey. As the years passed, she'd grown her channel to 3.5 million subscribers. Wow, January murmured, her gaze far away. I want to start a YouTube about ballet. You should do whatever your heart desires, Snowflake, Callie encouraged, winking at me. That's what your mom told me when I expressed interest in starting a channel. I understood that being the cool aunt to my niece wouldn't automatically transfer to my children, and their faces proved that theory right. When you get a little older, you'll understand, I told them. Now, the both of you go put your bags in the car. They took off, both stopping to hug me first. Once they were gone, Callie laughed. I can't believe they don't see how cool you are. It's all good, I smiled. I'm good with just being a mom. She rounded the island and wrapped her arms around me. I love you, T. I love you more, Buttercup. Glad you decided to spend the summer with us last minute, but I do wonder what caused the change of heart. She pulled away and returned to her stool with a shrug. I don't know. I wanted to stay on campus, but that didn't work out. I placed drinks in the cooler while contemplating her half-truth. Callie didn't keep much from me, but I had a feeling this was a subject she preferred not to visit yet. And while I respected her privacy, the sadness in her eyes was breaking my heart. Whenever you're ready to talk about it, I'll be here, I said softly. All ears, no judgment. She nodded, and I continued to pack snacks for the road. August came down shortly after I finished, his gaze lingering on Callie for a short moment, before I got the kiss I'd been waiting on.
What's up, Callie?
August greeted, picking up on her gloominess.
You all right?
She smiled and shook her head, standing to hug him. Hey, Uncle August. I'm okay. Just sleepy. It's so early. He tossed a knowing look my way after she mumbled something about going to check on the girls, and I nodded. Someone had broken my baby's heart, and we could do nothing about it.
You think Kingston knows?
August asked, phone already in hand as he typed a message. Baby.
He should know that she's hurting before he sees her face tomorrow.
I scoffed. So you aren't texting him about finding who the boy is and roughing him up? He shrugged and kissed my forehead.
Both things can be true, Angel Face.
His lips grazed the tip of my nose before he devoured my mouth. Fuck me. 10 years with this man, and I still couldn't get enough. Oh, come on, January groaned. Not this again, October complained. Auntie, do you see what we have to deal with? Callie's laughter is what forced us apart. Her eyes had brightened, and the stiffness in her shoulders disappeared. All she needed was to witness the girl's disgust of the love August and I shared to come back to life. This is going to be a great summer, Callie declared, eyes meeting mine. When is everyone else coming down? When the Hansons started to settle down one by one and create little versions of themselves, Norbank became their second home, too. After all these years, we'd managed to purchase a row of homes that sat off the shoreline. The townspeople had started calling it Hanson Row. June, July, September, and their families are coming down next weekend. I think Landon and Leslie and their crews are heading in at the same time. But Lola and her family are rolling in late because of open cases. Your parents are coming down tomorrow. The rest will pop in sporadically. She hummed. What's for breakfast? October asked, already over the topic. Snowflake and I think we should stop at the Blue Top. Auntie Callie also thinks we should have breakfast at the Blue Top, Callie chimed in, pulling the girls into her. Look at these faces. They pouted in unison. You can't deny them, can you? We couldn't, and probably never would. They were good, respectful kids with good grades and high remarks from their teachers to prove it. And as long as they continued to do the few things we asked of them, Our girls could have the world.
Blue top it is.
August decided after we exchanged nods. The girls screeched in excitement and took off to grab their iPads and phones charging upstairs. I reminded January to call Helen so we could stop by and see her before hitting the road. She'd been in remission for 2 years now, and the girls really enjoyed having her in their lives. With us spending the entire summer away from the city, she wanted to see them off, and we couldn't deny her that. I would be forever grateful for August's forgiving heart. This is going to be the best summer ever, Tobes, I heard January say before they got too far. I had a feeling this summer would be one for the books.
Epilogue 4. August. January 15. October 14.
Hey, Dad, can we talk?
January first poked her head through the door and entered after I waved her inside. What's up, Snowflake? She dropped down on the sofa, track uniform rumpled from the last meet of the season. Her gaze bounced around the room before she settled her pretty browns on me.
Well, I was wondering,
She shifted and dropped her gaze.
can you tell me about Chandra? Like in the way you knew her?
I observed my daughter, noting the way she dug her fingernails into the sofa, something she'd been doing since high school started. This was a long time coming, but I'd foolishly thought having Helen and Monique in her life to talk about Chandra would let me off the hook. January knew that Corey wasn't her biological mother all her life. Once she began to spend time with Helen, I couldn't bring myself to forbid the woman from talking about her daughter, and lying to January had always been out of the question. I knew her as kind, I said, finally finding the words, and stubborn, but smart as a whip. She loved to dance, especially ballet. I spotted the little smile curling her lips. She had taken after her in that respect, ballet and jazz being her top 2 genres of dance.
But
Her curious eyes met mine.
did you love her? I know you have Mom, but I guess I want to know if you ever loved someone else before her.
I nodded and moved to sit beside her. I loved Chandra very much, but we didn't want the same things. Her eyes took on a thoughtful expression before she asked,
Did you not want me?
I wanted you from the moment I learned of you, loved you from the very moment I saw your chubby face. She smiled and pushed my shoulder.
Dad, I saw my baby pictures. I wasn't chubby until after I came home.
Yeah, you eventually grew into this head. I ruffled her loose curls before she could duck away. If there's something else on your mind, we can talk about it, Snowflake. She turned to face me, dragging one leg on the sofa to hold.
Why do you always look so uncomfortable when her name comes up?
My body tensed without my permission. Fuck,
Like that.
she pointed.
You go all ramrod straight, and then I think that I did something wrong, but I know I didn't.
She sounded so frustrated, and I hated that it was because of me. To be honest, I am a little uncomfortable with the topic of Chandra.
Okay, can we talk about that? Dad, I feel like people are hiding things from me, and it's making me feel crazy. So please tell me what I'm missing.
I sighed and walked over to my desk. After grabbing the letter Chandra left me 15 years ago, I returned to the sofa. I'd told myself long ago that she'd never see it, but over time, my stance on the matter changed. When your bio mom was pregnant with you, we'd already broken up, I said, staring at the slightly tattered envelope. I only learned that I would be a father after you were born. I glanced over as her facial expression changed from curious to confused.
I knew you two weren't together anymore, or else that'd make you a cheater.
I lifted an eyebrow, and she shrugged.
My sister is only 6 months younger than me, Dad.
She elaborated with a huff.
Why didn't you know?
She didn't tell me. January nodded.
But
I never got to ask why. I took her hands and placed the letter in her palm. She was already gone by then, but she wrote this to me, and I'm going to let you read it. But you have to understand that it's nothing like what you're probably hoping. It might break your heart, but I promise to be here and help mend it. She clutched the envelope while squeezing my fingers.
I don't want to have a broken heart.
She whispered before pulling away.
What do you think I should do?
Unfortunately, Snowflake, I can't make this decision for you. I stood. Do you want to know the truth and find a way to accept it? Or do you want to cherish what you already know and leave the past in the past? No one but you needs to know the answer. I opened the door and sighed. I'll be a room away whenever you're ready to talk about what's in there. I knew what she would decide to do. January couldn't go through life without knowing the whole truth. Feeling sick about it, I went in search of Corey. The sweet sound of soft humming drew me to the living room. October was knocked out in the reclining chair, mouth wide open, with her track uniform on. She fell asleep after every meet in that exact spot.
What's wrong, baby?
Corey asked, patting the spot next to her on the sofa. I stretched out on my back and rested my head against her legs. She finally asked, I said, staring up at her. For the truth. All of it.
I don't know why I thought we had more time when so much of it has passed.
I nodded. 15 years. But it'll feel brand new to her. Not sure what to do with myself. She walked the center of my face with her fingers, going back and forth until I stopped her. You and me, remember? Her eyes were watery, but she held it together.
I don't want her to hurt.
She whispered.
I hope she talks to us.
Me too. I kissed the inside of her palm. We'll be here whenever that time comes, I affirmed.
Must you guys be all over one another all the time?
October asked, sitting up but somehow still half asleep. She stretched before officially opening her eyes.
What's wrong?
She asked, looking between the two of us.
Where's Snowflake?
I sat up. Upstairs. You should go check on her. She narrowed her eyes but jumped up as I expected and headed upstairs.
I have never been happier about them being the best of friends until now.
Corey mused as she stood. She reached for me, and I let her pull me up and into a hug.
You are a great father,
She whispered, chin on my chest and eyes on me.
Our girls adore you just as I do.
You don't think she'll be upset with me? Corey frowned.
Upset about what?
I had no fucking idea. But as her father, I felt somehow responsible.
You did your part, August. No move you've made since you brought our baby home has been wrong. It's been about making life easy for her from day one. And you've done that.
We did that, I corrected.
I know we did. And she'll always know that. I will.
January said from behind us. I turned, and the look in her eyes broke my heart. October stood beside her as support, and I looked between them, suddenly realizing my girls weren't so little anymore. The silence ate me up inside, but we waited for January to make the first move, and eventually she did.
Mommy,
She cried, rushing to Corey.
I love you so much, and I hope I never made you feel taken for granted. Everything you've done for me, Hey.
Corey wiped her face and smiled.
You've never once in your life made me feel anything but loved and proud, and a little emotional at how big you've gotten. What I did for you, choosing to be your second chance mom, was and will always be one of the best decisions I've ever made. My greatest accomplishment is this family with you and your sister and dad.
October, who had been trying to make herself smaller, inched closer to me. I draped an arm over her shoulder and tugged her into my side. Whenever you're ready, she left you a couple of things that I've been saving, I said, not wanting us to stand in sadness anymore. January threw herself at me, and we ended up in a group hug.
I'm sorry, Dad.
She murmured, choking on her words.
You didn't deserve that, but I'm glad you came for me and stayed.
I bundled my girls close, pulling Corey into the fold before falling back into the sofa.
My hair!
October complained.
Oh my goodness, you two really smell like you've been running for your lives.
Corey threw out, holding her nose.
Way to mess up the moment, you two.
January fussed as they removed themselves from me. I regarded her red-rimmed eyes closely until she smiled and said,
I'm not sure how I feel about what I learned. Just mostly sad right now. But I have you guys, so I'll be okay. Anyway, I'm gonna go shower. Can we have pizza for dinner?
She walked away before either of us could respond, and October followed her movements until she couldn't anymore.
Don't worry, I'll make sure she's okay.
Corey straddled me once October took off after her sister.
Another year, another chapter written,
She said, cupping my face. I chuckled, and still fucking happy. Even with this new obstacle to overcome, I felt relief that we would get through it as a family. How about another 15 years? Corey's eyes went soft.
You and me, August Hansen.
She kissed me gently, and I savored the moment.
You and me.
Always and forever.
This has been And Then Life Was Beautiful, written by Asia Monique, performed by Benjamin Charles and Nia Serge. Copyright 2023 by Asia Monique. Sound recording copyright 2024 by Asia Monique.